Yes.
Pathways. So Pathways is just a brand name, so just re-education program. So, right, the hardest thing. So especially for those of us, me included, who have been on the old education program of Toastmasters. The old education program were manual books that you were either receiving in the mail or you were getting here at the when we were meeting in person, and you would have this document, this booklet, and then you would go and read and fill up forms and things like that, all on paper. Well, essentially, what Toastmasters done is they taken all this paper stuff and put it online. So some people, including me, who were used to the paper stuff, they said, "Well, the paper was good. I was used to it. I don't know how to do it online." Well, really, is not that difficult. It is. It is not maybe necessarily the most user friendly system, but once you've done it, once you logged in, and once you've done one project, you will see is really not that hard. And and especially the younger generation were born with a they were essentially born with a cell phone. They'll have no problem using this. But like they said, the hardest part of any project, it's actually the start, right? You have to get started, right? Once you've done it, once you went through the difficulty, where do I click? Okay, then you'll be able to do it again. And the more you do it, just like Toastmasters, the more speech you deliver, the easier it becomes, the more comfortable you get. So you have to select a path. Toastmasters have I think there are 11 paths to choose from. You only need to choose one. You may actually work on different paths simultaneously, but I recommend that you work on one to start with. So select one path. So that's the objective of today. If you haven't done it yet, select one path. And then once you have the path, you have to open it and work with it. Uh, Once you do your project, you will need to submit those awards in order for the system to recognize that you perform your speeches. So this is the toastmasters.org website. And if you actually, this slide is a bit old, but if you go to education here, there should be an option to go to pathways. So you want to click on pathways to get there. And you will see that there's different links and different resources right there. So in order to actually make this work for you, you need to log in to the toastmasters.org website. Log in with your user ID, with username, it's your email. So just use your email, the email that you sign up with the Toastmasters, and your password. And of course, if you did not remember your password, you can get a reset of the password. So you have to log in order to actually choose your path and do all this stuff. Once you log in, you will see welcome with your first name. So if you don't see welcome, your first name, you're not logged in. And by the way, if you sit there for, I don't know, 20 minutes or 5 minutes or doing nothing, you will be logged out automatically. So you make sure you need to re-log in to, to work with pathways. So you have a few options. One of the options is to choose a path. And then another option is to go to Basecamp. Basecamp is really, once you've chosen a path, Basecamp is the system that enables you to work the pathways, to find the project that you have to work on, the resources, and then to submit that you've actually completed the project. So you're going to say, well, there's 11 paths. Okay, I don't know which one to choose from. So you have a tool, a pathway assessment tool that can guide you, that can recommend to you a path and two other alternatives. So you can go through that. It's a set of questions, essentially. What are you going to be? Well, are you speaking? Do you want the stuff in English? And then what are you interested in? There'll be several questions. After you run through all this question, you'll have a recommendation. So this is just showing one question or a couple of questions. And this is just an example. In this assessment, it recommended dynamic leadership as the path, well, two alternatives: persuasive influence and effective coaching. Now, this is a recommendation. If you still don't like what the system proposed, you can choose something else. Now, there's also resources both on the district website and actually now I'll show you on the Toastmasters.org, where you can find all the details about each path before you choose it. All the details: how many what are the types of project, how long are the speech, essentially, headers and details about each of the projects. So if you have questions about which path to choose. So once you've chosen a path, then you can work with that path, and you're going to work with that path for many months. I mean, depending on how fast you go, obviously the more speeches, the more projects you do, the time frame could be shortened, but likely it's going to take you many months to finish a path. So in order to go to the path, to actually use that path, you have to go to what's called Basecamp. It's kind of the system, the engine system of pathways. And this is how it looks like. So once you're on the Basecamp, it will show you what path you're on. This one is called effective coaching. And for each path, there are 5 levels. 5 levels, each level being a set of project. Generally, a project is a speech, or it could be an evaluation, or it could be some kind of a role in Toastmasters or a special project. So most paths, if not all paths, always start with the icebreaker in level 1. So this is just an example to show you, okay, once you chose an effective coaching, you can choose any path, you're going to have an icebreaker, which is a speech that some of you, if not all of you, have already given, which is a 4 to 6 minute speech about yourself. But you'll get more information in there. So you can click on launch and you will have all kinds of details. So this is how Pathway works, especially compared to people who are used to the paper version. Paper version, you just turn the pages. Well, here, in order to turn the pages, you have to click on this arrow. So the one on the right, you move forward 1 page. One on the left, you go backward in case you miss something and you want to go back. There is also an index where you can click here and you can go directly to a certain version of that explanation. So essentially view that as the book. If you were used to the book, these are the various chapters of the book, and you can go directly to a chapter forward or backward. And it really is very similar to the content that you would see in the book, a structure. So once you give this speech, after you give the speech, rather, then you will have to go back to Basecamp to actually tell Basecamp that you're done. And how Basecamp recognize that is before you give the speech, they make you take a self-evaluation, how you feel about, giving a speech or whatever that it is about the project. Then you give that speech. Then you go back to Basecamp and reevaluate yourself and submit your evaluation. And that's how Pathway recognizes that you completed that level. And that will actually go eventually to Duane, who's our VP of Education, so he can see your progress. So these are the various steps. So there's always an introduction. So when you go through this presentation, for every project that you do, there's an introduction, an assignment. You assess your skills before. It tells you all the various steps you have to go through, explanation about the project. And again, after you're done with that speech, it doesn't have, you could do it right after that evening that you give the speech, you can assess your skills, or you could do the next day or 2 days later or 3 days later, but you have to do this in order for the system to recognize it. So you assess your skills, which is, again, it goes through a few questions, and then that kind of register into Pathway. And this is the assessment. Assessment is very simple, scale of 1 to 5, how you feel about those questions. In order to progress in that, you have to click next on each on each window. So you click next, you see there's like maybe 6 different questions here. You click next, 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 next to go to each question. And then when you're done with that, you assess 1 to 5. Then when you're done with those questions, don't forget you have to click on submit to submit your self-assessment. And then you can go on to the next project. And the rating, so this is another view of the levels. So you see in the level 1, you have maybe 3 or 4 different types of projects. So each path is going to be a little bit different. So again, to look at the detail for each project, you have to click on launch, which will show the more details. This I will skip. This is mostly for Duane, who is the manager, who's a VP, and he can actually review the request and validate and make sure that things are being sent to Toastmasters International. So in summary, this is, Pathways is the education system of Toastmasters. I really encourage you to open and choose a path if you haven't done it yet. And if you have chosen a path, after you choose a path, then go to the base camp and start with the icebreaker or whatever project you're in, and really follow the program, because that's what's going to help you. I see I'm way over time, so I'm not gonna show my screen on my own internet connection, but maybe we can do that another time, or maybe we can have maybe one. I'll take one or two questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Any question, or you want to wrap it up?
Where do most people get stuck?
I think most people, so like I would say, the old folks like us say, well, I don't know what to do, right? So because we're all a bit afraid of, it's new. And the way I see that, it's a little bit like, I used to get all my statements by paper, right? My bank statement, my PG&E statement, right? Comes in the mail, and I put it in my folder, and it's easy to look at. Well, now if I want to see my PG&E statement, I have to log into PG&E, right? It's a little bit of a pain, but you have to have your password. So you have to have your user ID, your password, and you have to go to the system. So it's a little bit of a pain to log in, but once you've done it, then you can log in obviously from anywhere. During the pandemic, there was obviously a good thing, because it was hard to get stuff done, and most people weren't in the office. So there are pluses and minuses. Now, you'll see a lot of those documents are all on PDF files. So if you still like to print stuff, you can print all those PDF documents. Now, you will have to print it yourself, right? But all this stuff, all this documentation is on PDF. So again, the hardest thing is to try it. Try it the first time. If you get stuck, reach out to me, reach out to Duane, reach out to the district, other members, Toastmasters International, people will help you. So, it's really not that hard. You can't break the system. And if you do, then maybe Toastmasters will give you an award.
Okay, and Stephen had a question, I thought.
You have a question, Stephen?
Oh, I was just curious. How many people have in the group are I mean, this is usually decided pretty quickly when they join the group, or?
So a little bit of history on that. So before, I think around 2018 or so, maybe 2017, there wasn't Pathways. There was that paper manual. And maybe it was started before, but it was before COVID. And so there was a transition period of about 2 to 3 years where you had the option to either continue on the new system, continue on the old paper system, or move to the Pathway, the electronic system. So some people have done, one or the other, or continue. But then I can't remember what year. After a certain year, I think it was during COVID 2020 or 2021, there was no more choices but just doing pathways. So now every Toastmasters member have to be on pathway. If they're not on pathways, they're not really cannot get the credit from Toastmasters International, and they're not really, taking the best experience or from what they can get out of Toastmasters. So everybody should be on pathway. A question from Duane?
Yeah, Mark, I have a question. You guys can hear me, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question about pathways. I heard that in Toastmasters, when we complete a pathway level, I heard that we can provide an email, and Toastmasters International would email my boss. I heard that my boss would be notified of the achievement, and which would actually look really good in my employment. Is that true?
Yeah, so that's actually not just new with pathways. It existed even before. So before, I can't remember if it was done on a quad level. They didn't have quite a notion of levels, but they had a notion of when you achieve a goal. So you had, and now you have an option. It's an option. You don't have to, obviously, but it's an option. Once you're ready, once you have an award, and I think it's a level, and obviously completing a path, you can, if you want, you can tell your VPE to have Toastmasters International send an email to your supervisor, whoever that is. It doesn't even have to be your supervisor. You can give a name of a person that you want to be notified once you achieve a Toastmasters goal. So that's true. It's an option. Okay, well, I think I will wrap it up, and let's move on to our Toastmaster.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for a very informative speech.